Welcome back to the What About AI podcast. I'm Sean,
Hey guys, I'm James Perkins.
and the topic that we have for this episode is, and I believe I am reading this correctly, but the customer service jobs are already gone. That is quite the statement. Let's unpack that for a moment. So, some stats for you, James. Salesforce, this is fairly, I think, well known. I've seen it in the news quite a bit, but Salesforce CEO, they've already cut their customer service workforce, entire department, basically in half. So headcount of about 9,000 to about 5,000 because of them implementing agentic um, AI agents instead. And that's just one department. That's not a pilot program. That's already done. I'm curious, have you been hearing about how well that has been going? I have not. I feel like I've heard mixed messages, but that's pretty dramatic either way.
That's insane, and I think it's real. I mean, over the past, I'll say 3 years, I have a lot of friends that act as COOs or are in fairly high level operations positions, and I've seen that reduction. I've seen folks actively looking at 20% reduction year over year, attempting to reduce the call center size or farm some of it out to get savings by going to the Philippines or India or automate where possible. But the automation tools 3 years ago couldn't do it. So they had to end up rehiring back folks and refilling seats. And depending on time of year, they were doing different planning. But in the past year and a half, I'll say, yes, I've seen tons of layoffs. I didn't know the number was that big. That's actually outrageous. That's even surprising to me. But yeah, I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah, that is intense, to say the least. And if that stat wasn't enough, this one may be worse. I'm taken back by this one. So Gartner predicts that companies will replace 20 to 30% of their customer service workforces this year. So in less than a year, in 2026, which is a wild statistic to me. I almost can't rationalize that one. Thoughts on that?
Well, most times you call into a help desk or a call center, let's say it's for fraud charges on your credit card. It's the same three questions you get asked and you have to answer. Or if you're calling for technical difficulties with your TV, you're responding to the same questions every single time, and the responses are always the same. So to have people reading from a script costs money. I mean, for companies, they're paying at minimum, at the lowest minimum wage, which is hardly livable, by the way. But that's what's happening or has happened for a long time. Now, if you can train an AI, which you clearly can, I mean, you can talk to ChatGPT today at home and test it out for yourself. It responds quickly. It understands what you're saying. It picks up on tone and intention, and it'll follow. If you're a big corporate, it'll follow the script you give it, and it can even think through and decision on its own about, where there might be room for an exception or escalation is appropriate. So I understand why companies are doing it. It's going to be a lot cheaper. And I don't know that most folks calling into a call center are going to notice the difference, because the humans that take those calls today are so afraid to go off script that it's almost like they've been preparing for this for a long time.
That's a really good point. I think among the roles that are at the most risk for AI disruption, I could certainly see customer service being up there for a lot of those reasons. I work with a ton of call centers and folks, great people, myself as well too, being a long time career in IT. We pretty much had one everywhere I went. And yeah, I could see them being pretty disrupted by this tech in a major way. In fact, another stat that I've got here is the expectation is that upwards of 80% of customer service roles are expected to be automated by this tech. And that could displace basically millions of jobs. The numbers I have here is anywhere from like 2 to 3 million jobs in the US, longer term prediction, but still, pretty devastating. So where I was going to go from here is essentially, what you made a good case for basically what the AI likely can do, maybe already or certainly will be able to do in the form of automating a lot of those responsibilities. But what remains basically the human's responsibility as part of this work? So I want to start talking about, for the folks that are expected to be disrupted by this or in these roles now, like how should they be thinking of, you know, what you basically just described was some of the work you're doing now is almost kind of preparing for the AI to take over, but maybe some of it isn't, or some of it won't be as this shift continues. So where do you see them, still being needed for people to do some of the work related to the customer service elements?
There's definitely room for that, right? I think those numbers are a little low. It's probably going to be more than 80%. And I think there's probably more than 3 million jobs in the US that are customer service focused, or at least jobs that are tied to the US, where they're employed in the Philippines or India and other countries for US companies. What I think remains really is luxury, high end, high net worth customer service, anything that's an exception case. So where you don't fit the standard protocols, any failures and like account verification or where automation kind of falls flat, I think you'll need to have humans engage, and that human component. There's times where you need to have a human to human connection, right? If you're dealing with a situation at the hospital, or you're having an issue with a very personal matter, you're not going to want to have that conversation with an automated over the phone robot or AI system. So I think there'll still be room for humans to provide customer care there, but that's not much.
True. No, yeah, well said. I know, well, certainly before AI, I always preferred to interact with a human. Those were the keywords I was always throwing out when I was trying to access customer service departments. It's changing, I think, and I'm giving the AI a little bit more leeway, like basically testing out to see how well it works. I'm not sure I'm convinced yet, but I think it's going there, whether it's better or not. So yeah, a lot of the standard stuff for sure, I think can be automated. But to your point, that exception handling and instances where the AI isn't really going to know what to do, like it's going to get stuck, right? So we're always talking about how the people that are expected to be disrupted, what they can do to prepare themselves. I think that's probably a good one to start with, like not just learning the technology, but understanding what you're going to need to do in order to manage that. So I could see, we've talked about before different roles getting created, right?
Yeah.
Not just managers of people, but managers of the AI, coaches for the AI, anything that can kind of unblock the work that they're doing and help enable that to be more successful. But I don't know necessarily how many of those roles will be left. Probably quite a bit less than they had before the disruption, I imagine.
Yeah, well, call center agents and folks doing customer care usually are working from a very, very tight script or strict guidelines. They're not usually doing knowledge work or coming up with novel solutions. I think that's going to change. So if you want to stay in that business and you like what you're doing and you want to do more of it, you're going to have to kind of go out of maybe your comfort zone with those very strict goalposts and find yourself providing more customized care, specific care to folks if you want to survive in that career. I can tell you, I've had this week, I don't know how many times I was cursing on the phone, but I was losing my shit trying to get our account verified for Microsoft. And I couldn't get it. I was screaming like, get me a person. I Thank God those recordings aren't available to public because I said some things. But I did finally get a human that could evaluate like the situation and approve the account and put us through. But it shouldn't have taken that much. And you're going to have instances, especially in the beginning, where AI is taking over for call centers, where people go through that struggle. And that backlash might keep some level of customer service roles alive for a little bit longer, maybe a few years. But again, it's all going to fall down to very specific use cases or instances where escalations, exceptions, or exceptional care are required.
I think those are all great points. And for folks that are in customer service now that are ready and willing to try to tackle the technology, upskill themselves, learn it, and then adapt, evolve, kind of shift with the industry if they want to remain in that type of a function at a company, you're going to probably have to think of it in that way. In fact, probably makes sense to think of the model as shifting from what was primarily human to more of a hybrid, probably at least, right? Because AI is going to be able to do the majority of it, more than likely the vast majority of it, but not everything, right? So there's still going to be elements of it
Right.
where we're going to need people involved. So set yourself up as best as possible to prepare for that world.
Agreed.
Cool. Yeah, no, that was good. We unpacked this topic pretty significantly. Obviously, customer service probably high on the list, unfortunately, for disruption due to the technology, but we've given some folks some advice in terms of like what they can do. Anything else you want to share with them, James, about places where they can go to prepare for some of this stuff themselves before we
Yeah,
wrap up?
I did not realize that the layoff numbers were that high already. So when I hear those things, I have like a guttural reaction, and I feel for you. We want to help you. So we have free resources on our site. If you go to whataboutai.com, there's an entire section of free resources to access healthcare services in your state, unemployment insurance in your state, find short-term jobs or gigs that might hold you over until you find full-time employment. And then we of course provide personal guidance. We're doing like a weekly office hours where you can call in and ask, even if you don't have the money to afford our consulting services or our coaching, you can call in and ask questions and we'll answer them. So we're doing as much as we can to help you get through this transition. Layoffs are terrible. I'm very sorry to hear. We're here to help.
Agreed. Yeah, reach out, guys, if there's anything we can do to help. And thanks for listening.